Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining my session. Today, I will be talking about preprints. More importantly, I will be talking about early stage sharing of scientific outputs and what we can do as publishers, as researchers, as institutions, as funders, to make sure that the public has access to the latest scientific research as early as possible, as fast as possible, and in a reliable way. My name is Alberto Pepe, and I am Director of Strategy and Innovation at Wiley. This is just a summary about my work and background, so a little bit of a visual resume in one slide. The most important thing here is that I have a background in scientific research. I was doing work in astrophysics and computer sciences at different universities for about 12 to 15 years in my career. And later I started a platform for early creation and sharing of research results. And more recently, that platform called Autoria has been acquired by Wiley. And I now work at the intersection of open science, data sharing, reproducibility, and I have a passion for imagining what the future of scientific publishing will look like. Important for today's presentation is the fact that I posted my first preprint about 15 years ago in 2006. And so I've been pretty active in the field of early sharing and early dissemination of research results. I also have a slide, which is this one, that I use quite a lot in my talks. And so I am going to use it today as well. This is just the opening slide that in a way is supposed to deliver and give you an idea of like what my work and passion is all about. So this slide really it can be read as a mantra, and it starts off by saying researchers produce 21st century research, but they write it up using 20th century technology, and they publish it in a 17th century format. And so just to be a little bit more specific about what this means is that I think we all agree that research is by definition a collaborative, computational, data-driven, automated, web-based kind of effort. And so by definition is really at the cutting edge. It's all about creating new kind of knowledge and doing so in a collaborative way using the latest computational resources we have and bringing in data, automation, and the web. However, when you look at the type of tools that are being used to write up that research, you'll see that a lot of those tools are tools that were actually designed and built in the last century, in the 1990s or 1980s. LaTeX, PDF, Word, Excel are all formats that really are 20th century formats and 20th century tools and technologies. And by definition, they're not collaborative, they're not data-driven, they're not version controlled, they're also not backwards compatible. And then what's even more disappointing is that we're still publishing in a 17th century format. The paper you see on screen there on the right is actually a research paper from 150 years ago, and it doesn't look too different from what we publish and today. So even though we have moved in the direction of making sure that research is really cutting edge, it's 21st century, the tools that we use are 20th century, and we still publish in a 17th century format, which means in a rather static and two-dimensional way. Yes, it's true, we have taken things from a paper to a digital format, but a PDF is essentially a photograph of a real sheet of paper. So if we translate this in terms of publishing and the publishing industry, what happens, the real challenge we have is that we as publishers, we tend to flatten a lot of the content that we produce. So on the one end here, on the left, you'll have the inputs provided by the scientists, and the inputs are things like data, code, papers, visualizations. Researchers are producing real, dynamic, interactive, alive content. But the moment that they start writing up their papers, so they use authoring tools, the moment that the paper goes through peer review and enters peer review systems, and then it goes through production and typesetting, it slowly gets flattened. And so we end up outputting content which is static in nature, like the two-dimensional figure I'm showing here to the right. And so my point for today is, can preprints bridge the gap? So can preprints be the one thing that perhaps can deliver content in a more dynamic way and bypass a lot of the bottlenecks like authoring tools, peer review systems, and typesetting systems? So I assume that perhaps a lot, or maybe some of the people hearing my talk today may not be familiar with the notion of a preprint. And so I'll probably spend 30 seconds just mentioning what a preprint is. In general, it's an early research output. So preprint is whatever comes before the print, where print really means the final published, peer-reviewed version of a research paper, of a research work. So anything that comes before that, I like to think of as an early research output, as a preprint. In a more traditional way, a preprint has become a synonym for a version of a scholarly paper that comes before the formal peer review. So it's not peer reviewed. And so it's before publication in a peer reviewed journal. And the vast majority of times, preprints are offered or sort of shared with the public for free. And it's available even after the document, manuscript, is published. So preprints were not very common and very popular until about 2 years ago. They were very popular in just one field, or just a couple of fields, the field of physics, astrophysics, computer science. A lot of more technical, hard sciences were the fields in which preprints were a crucial component of the scientific dissemination landscape. However, in 2020, with the outbreak of COVID and worldwide pandemic, the amount of preprints posted by researchers started growing incredibly, also in fields outside of physics and computer science. So the graph that you see here to the left is a graph actually from The Economist that shows the first 6 months of the year 2020. And the blue line is the amount of peer-reviewed content that was published around COVID-19. And the light blue line is the same. It's also the volume of content that was posted in preprint format about COVID-19. As you will see, there's a one-to-one relationship. So for each single publication that came out, there was a preprint that came out as well. And this is unprecedented in the world of scientific research, and especially in the world of medicine, where for the vast majority for the by and large, only papers that had gone through peer review would normally be shared with the public. So to give you an idea, about 30,000 preprints appeared in 2020 and these are preprints about COVID-19 alone, and a third of them were mentioned by news articles. In other words, the news outlets, news venues were actually paying attention to preprints and were posting and writing about them. You can compare this number, about a third, so with the baseline, which is about 1% of preprints in general are mentioned by news articles. So this was a tremendous change, drastic change in how we disseminate research results. And this created problems right away, right? There's a quote up here, up at the top, and it's saying, oh, I'm starting to see what the problem is with preprints. There's a lot of junk science that would never enter, that would never even be submitted to a journal, that now all of a sudden is being shared widely. And then a different kind of quote here at the bottom that is saying, hey, preprints are actually a new way of doing things, and they are a way and a means to create disruption and to change, to bring